show us is just how brutal the Decepticons are. Not the Decepticons, the Dinobots. They both start with D, so it's kind of confusing. Hey guys, before I start today's review, I really want to thank all of my new subscribers. Last time I checked, I have 135, so wow, I really never expected to get that many in the short amount of time that I've been around, so thank you so much, guys. I know a lot of you came from Kal-El Prime's shout out, so I want to thank him once again. But I also want to give a little bit of a shout out to a subscriber of mine called NC Stateser. I'm going to put his link on the sidebar. I'm not even going to try to point because I know that I will point on the wrong side, and I know you guys know what side it is on. I don't need to tell you. But he does Transformers reviews, and he actually does a really, really good job, so I just kind of wanted to give him a shout out. Go check him out. He does a really good job, so yeah. So today I am starting with a new series. I'll be doing my first review for Maximum Dinobots. Woo! I was actually thinking about doing Maximum Dinobots before I did All Hail Megatron, but obviously All Hail Megatron is much longer than Maximum Dinobots, and it's much farther ahead, and I wanted to get caught up with that as soon as I could. But also, anyone who's seen my reviews or has read All Hail Megatron knows we get some information about a few characters that kind of affects how you feel about them in Maximum Dinobots. Now the thing is, anything that happens in All Hail Megatron is in continuity, and it takes place a year after this, so it makes it kind of weird to read this knowing what's going to happen in the future. So I just kind of want you guys to keep that in mind. So that will be very interesting to see how that plays out. Also, while All Hail Megatron kind of made it easier to jump right into the story, Maximum Dinobots definitely take some key points from previous series, especially Spotlight Shockwave, Spotlight Grimlock, obviously, and all of the events of the Asians series. So I guess there's really nothing to do but to start reviewing issue 1. So the issue starts off, and it's on Cybertron, and there's a line that reads, "This is how it was." And we see all of the Dinobots. And the first couple of pages are just the Dinobots having a blast, decimating all of these Decepticons. One of which kind of looks like Octane, but I can't be sure, so I'm not going to say that it is. Of course, we have Grimlock, Slag, Sludge, Swoop, and Snarl. No differences. We haven't added any Dinobots or anything. What these first couple of pages show us is just how brutal the Dinobots are. There's at least 3 instances of decapitation. And we kind of just have Grimlock kind of just talking about what it meant to be a Dinobot. He said, you know, sometimes we sidestep the chain of command, but, you know, ends justify the means. And then he says, you know, it couldn't last. And of course we see what happened in the last couple of pages was just Grimlock kind of flashing back or having a memory. And we see that Grimlock is with the Skyfire, which is the ship that the Dinobots took to Earth back in Spotlight Shockwave, and basically he just kind of goes through what has happened in previous issues of the series. We see that Grimlock is on Ultra Magnus's wanted list, basically. We get reminded that he's being hunted down by Scorponok, as we saw in Spotlight Grimlock, and he mentions that Megatron is on his way to taking Earth by force. And he says, you know, how much worse can it get? Famous last words. And then we switch our focus to Reno, Nevada, where we see Skywatch. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, the simplest way basically to put Skywatch is that they are trying to control Cybertronians that they have found on Earth. Previously, Skywatch has basically tried to take control over Ravage and Laserbeak, as well as Grimlock, as we saw in Spotlight Grimlock. And here we see them testing their control over the rest of the Dinobots. And the Dinobots are just kicking all kinds of butt. They're destroying stuff a lot. My favorite has to be Swoop, slicing down this plane thing here. So basically, it seems like Skywatch has pretty good control over the Dinobots. Now, they do make a quick reference to Spotlight Grimlock where they're saying, you know, we've been in this position before where we seem to have complete control, and then not so much. But one of the scientists says, even though there's been some kinks, they seem to iron themselves out, so we will see how ironed out they really are. Then we go to Dallas, Texas, and we discover that there seems to be a machination mole inside of Skywatch. And for anyone who doesn't know what machination is, again, to put it simply, it's basically a group that Scorponok has put together so he could test and create Headmaster technology. And what we have here is someone who is obviously working with Skywatch, giving information to Dante, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is Scorponok's human counterpart for his headmasterness. And then Dante basically just starts talking about, for a second, like, how it's kind of weird to be a headmaster. Like, no duh. And then he talks about how the Machination Empire will rise, and we see a lot of Sunstreaker clones. And they're multicolored. And then we jump to Northampton, Massachusetts, where we see the real Sunstreaker, or Sun Hunter, Hunt Streaker, I don't know. It's Sunstreaker and Hunter, and they're coming out of a burning building that apparently Sunstreaker just really wanted to break. And it's funny because we see Hunter driving Sunstreaker, and you're kind of like, wait, what? But it's actually, Sunstreaker has changed his holo form, or whatever they call the holograms that drive them. It's now Hunter, so that's kind of cool. And one thing that's really interesting is this bit kind of gives a good look at Hunter and Sunstreaker's relationship, basically. He keeps saying, like, no offense, but I'm a serial me. We're not we. No offense, but I really just want you to go back to being all human. He keeps telling Hunter, no offense, but that kind of thing a lot. So it's interesting to see that Sunstreaker obviously isn't really digging being part human. But so we discover that Hunter and Sunstreaker, or Huntstreaker, or whatever, has discovered some information about the machinations, and they see something about the Dinobots, and that leads them to be on their way to Dallas, Texas. So then we go back to Grimlock, who is aboard the Skyfire, and he's saying that he's sending out a signal for someone who he believes can help him. And it's kind of funny, there's this little screen that he's using that has all these different symbols on it, which I'm guessing is supposed to be like Cybertronian. And some of these symbols are actually pretty funny, and the funniest one is one of the symbols, I'm not going to try to show you because it's really small, but one of the symbols is actually the IDW like light bulb logo, which is pretty cool.